Just in time for the holiday season, here we have Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton suing a homeless shelter. Well, that doesn't seem very Christmas spirit, does it? For what? Well, for helping homeless people. Now, of course, he's claiming that the Sunrise Homeless Navigation Center is operating what he calls a, quote, taxpayer-funded drug paraphernalia giveaway next to an elementary school. Oh, really? And adds that they're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. And if Paxton succeeds in court, that shelter will be shut down with no replacement. So no place for any of these unhoused people to then go. Now, it's not exactly a surprise to see a Republican hating on homeless people. Happens all the time. However, Sunrise happens to be run by a Christian ministry, which is actually doing something good. Now, wait a minute, Paxton. I thought he was supposed to be a good Christian. Apparently not. That said, the ministry does plan to respond to Paxton's lawsuit by saying that they do have a religious right to assist other people. Which, yeah, you know, hey, if you were to actually go in and read the Bible, yeah, it turns out there's a lot of pages dedicated to helping the unfortunate or less fortunate. So now, Mark Hibelink, the pastor at Sunrise Community Church and executive director of its homelessness ministry, noted that churches are protected under the First Amendment. The U.S. Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act, and also the Texas Religious Freedom Restoration Act. Wow. So, yeah, they're protected in their, activities. Alan Graham of Texas Christian nonprofits Mobile Loaves and Fishes and Community First Village said this, quote, faith-based institutions like churches offer some of the most important solutions to the epidemic of homelessness in Texas. Thankfully, the First Amendment, federal law, and state law protects churches that serve people experiencing homelessness across our country, even when governments attempt to restrict their work. Oh, well, that's ironic because you've got all these Republicans that are like, we need to be more of a Christian nation. Well, I mean, this would be an example and pass laws to, allow churches to do more stuff. And oh, would you look at that? Some of them are actually taking the time to be real Christians and take care of the less fortunate. And the same people are like, no, you can't do that. That is not what we meant.
Can't let that happen.
Helping the less fortunate? No, not on our watch. You're supposed to be more hateful towards gay people. That's the reality. And by the way, going after homeless people unhoused, a large amount of them are LGBTQ youth that are kicked out by bigoted parents. So that comprises a great deal of the homeless population. So just saying. But here's the thing, though. I think the government should be doing more to try to solve this problem, to actually solve this problem, right? But they don't. Of course not. I mean, you look all across the country, even in liberal places like California, you have, Governor Gavin Newsom being like, let's just torch all the tents and do homeless people sweeps. Instead of actually doing things that would help put people in homes, like, I don't know, going after the insane cost of living, the mortgages, lack of affordable housing, things like that. But anyway, government should be doing more, and they're not. They're doing probably the worst things. And you have people out there that say, well, if the government's not going to do it, then maybe charity should do it. And this is the Republican/libertarian position. Well, let's just let the charities take care of it, right? And then when a charity, in this case, a church charity, decides, you know what, I am going to do something, the Republicans in government are like, no, that's not what we meant. It's almost as if they don't want to solve the problem. Actually, they don't. Well, why don't they want to solve the problem, you ask? Well, turns out homelessness is a great motivator for people to, stay in terrible jobs. Yeah. And it's actually really, really good for the private prison industry as well. But here's the hypocrisy, right? So you've got in Texas a Christian nationalist with power trying to shut down a church ministry that wants to help the least of these, right? While inadvertently highlighting the problem that Republicans have exacerbated. What do I mean? It turns out the Austin City Council has actually given about $2.5 million to Sunrise in public funding to do their work since 2021. So, Austin, a fairly liberal city, actually giving taxpayer money to homeless shelters, right? Well, Paxton says the ministry is corrupt. They've enriched themselves with public money. Okay, but where's the evidence of that? Where's the evidence that these religious leaders are getting rich off this project? Or, not using the money appropriately? Look, I understand, like, if there are investigations that are like, wow, look at this, this is a misuse of taxpayer money. So far, there hasn't been any of this particular institution. And while I would rather have government actually do things like this, run shelters and things like that, and actually enact programs to help homeless people get into homes and get clean and things like that. Unfortunately, as I mentioned before, the problem with the government doing that is that they don't really want to. They don't really want to fix the issue, and so. But anyway, no investigation into Sunrise has provided any proof that they are doing corruption. Okay, they're not using this money appropriately. And the real reason that Paxton doesn't like this is because this is a liberal church. Okay, and they're doing something positive, which Paxton hates. Okay, taking care of the homeless, it's too lib for him. Okay, and so what they're using is they're doing the scare tactics to try to shut it down. They're doing drugs, they're doing crime, and it's not like there hasn't been a few instances of residents there doing drugs, or being violent with other members of that shelter, right? Hasn't affected the school next door. Now, that said, the lawsuit claims that unhoused people are, quote, urinating, defecating, fornicating, fighting, and leaving needles in the area. An area which is right next to Joslin Elementary School. Sunrise permits the drug use on and around its surrounding property, and then permits the homeless to linger in and around the community, even if they are in an unstable state. In Sunrise's own words, Sunrise has converted the area into a steady home base for this dangerous, drug-addled homeless population. The result is predictable and devastating for the local community. He also claims the ministry seems to tolerate the drug use. How so? By offering non-tainted syringes. Now, here's the thing, though. If somebody's struggling with substance abuse, are they going to magically stop doing drugs if they don't have clean needles? No, they're going to do it with whatever needles that they can find. And so, obviously, the idea is, look, we don't want them doing drugs, obviously. But if they're going to do it, then we're going to at least offer clean, sterile needles. Okay? You don't have to like it, but there is a good reason behind it. The CDC, they note that offering sterile needles can reduce the risk of infection and prevent outbreaks of disease. That makes sense, all right? But what about, they're encouraging drug use next to a school. Well, here's the thing. According to studies, offering clean needles doesn't actually encourage drug use. Maybe it encourages safer drug use, but the drugs are going to get used regardless. But okay, say for the sake of argument that it does, right? All right, well, what if this shelter, which has people that are doing drugs next to it, what if this is actually harming the students, even though there's no evidence of that whatsoever? Well, obviously we should care about that, right? I don't want students being harmed by unhoused people, right? Nobody does. Nobody does. So if that's the case, what the solution then would be to move the shelter to some place that's a little bit more safer for not only the shelter residents, but also for the students, right? Is that the plan? Is that what Paxton is trying to do? It's just, hey, we would like you to relocate to a different place. No, no. In fact, Paxton has no alternative. None whatsoever. Of course not. Of course not. The whole purpose is to try to shut it down. Now, that's not going to solve the unhoused problem in that area. No, people are going to go elsewhere, and they're going to use drugs and possibly die from an overdose or tainted needles or violence or exposure. What the shelter is trying to prevent. And of course, they could also just get arrested, which again doesn't help the unhoused people at all. At least with places like Sunrise, there is that possibility of help, and there is that possibility of being able to get their lives together. In fact, look, Sunrise has apparently helped more than 4,275 people move into safe, supportive housing. I'd say that's a good thing. Among those they've helped are families with young children, who are among the fastest growing segments of Austin's homeless population. So they're actually doing real good there in helping people. The thing is, Republicans like Paxton look at that and say, no, we don't want to help people. We don't want to help people. We don't want anybody else to help them. Because it's about trying to make them disappear. Okay? They don't want homeless people around at all. So the cruelty, of course, is the method by depriving them of places to go. And the purpose is to make them leave or to allow them to die. That's the reality here. An unfortunate truth is that there are so many people in this country that think the unhoused should just die. They should just be allowed to die off. Oh, they screw up their own lives. Oh, why should we help them? I don't want to get help. Anyway, that's what they believe. I'm sure there's a couple of people out there that are unhoused that are like, no, don't help me. All right, maybe one or two. But I think the vast majority of people that are unhoused, especially through the result of economic issues of not being able to afford housing or having medical issues or mental issues, I think the vast majority of people actually do want to be helped. They actually do want to get their lives back together. They actually do want to not be homeless anymore. And I think one of the major problems here is that some of the people who end up in that situation are overcome with hopelessness. And that does lead to doing drugs. Because who wants to be sober in that situation, when you're facing that situation, when you feel like, the world treats you like a complete and utter failure, disgusting, terrible, horrible, immoral person that you allowed yourself to end up like this way, to end up without a home. And so that's how we treat people. And so how they treat themselves is reflective of how society treats them. And so if they're expected to just be, bums, terrible people, losers, whatever, they're going to feel like that. And that's going to get in the way of them actually being able to receive help and to get their lives back together, which I think, again, a lot of them don't want to be in this situation and actually want to help themselves. They just need for somebody to believe in them, to offer them something, to offer them a little bit of hope. You know what I'm saying? And so charities like this, groups like this, homes like this, are actually offering that help. And apparently doing so in a good way, in a way that's not manipulative, as far as I can tell. And again, I'm a little, suspicious of religious organizations because there are organizations out there that will, yes, offer help, but only if you convert, only if you're, going to be believing in this religion or faking to believe in this religion. And so I haven't seen any evidence that Sunrise is doing something like that. And so as far as I can tell, they're on the up and up. Okay. That said, when you look at, the homeless issue as they should just die or disappear, whatever, well, it's terrible for society. It's also pretty hypocritical. But hypocrisy is something that Republicans, especially Ken Paxton, has never really shied away from. In fact, earlier this year, Paxton sued the Annunciation House, which is a Catholic ministry, which generally tends to agree with Republicans on a lot of issues, especially social issues, but they happen to help refugees, which when it comes to the current right-wing Republican, helping refugees is a no-no. Can't do that. Oh, no. Bad. Definitely not in the Bible to, ignore the plight of the immigrant. In fact, it says that you should treat them as if they are your neighbor, and you should, take care of the homeless, the poor, the destitute, whatever, because they're the only ones that are supposed to get into heaven. I mean, if Paxton thinks that he is a good Christian, man, wait till he reads about that Jesus guy. Tell you what, that he's gonna blow that guy's mind once he learns about that. Giving away his stuff to the poor, overturning the tables of the money changers. Oh no. Oh no. That's why a lot of them tend to prefer Republican Jesus. Totally made up right-wing caricature of what they believe Jesus would be. Because the real one happened to be maybe a little too radical for their right-wing sensibilities. Imagine that. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.